The Forgotten War. The Empire emerges. The galaxy had long forgotten humanity. Centuries ago, the Galactic Union ruled over thousands of star systems. Their power was absolute, their control unchallenged. They feared only one thing: humans. Humans were different from the other species. They were not the strongest, nor the fastest, nor the smartest. But they were relentless. They adapted, they endured, and worst of all, they refused to submit. The Union saw them as a threat. A war was declared. Humanity fought bravely, but the Union was vast and overwhelming. Planet after planet fell. Earth was the last to stand. But in the end, it burned. The Union's fleets bombed the surface until nothing remained but dust and fire. With their homeworld destroyed, humans had no place in the galaxy. The Union erased all records of their existence. Books, history logs, and archives were rewritten. The war itself was removed from memory. Humanity was no more. Or so they believed, a shadow in the darkness. For centuries, the galaxy thrived in peace. The Union ruled without challenge. Alien civilizations forgot the war. And with time, even the leaders of the Union stopped fearing the lost species. But in the farthest reaches of space, something moved. At the edge of the galaxy, beyond the territories of the Union, an unknown fleet appeared. It was silent. No transmissions, no identification, just thousands of warships emerging from the darkness of deep space. Their design was unfamiliar, but their purpose was clear. The Union's border patrol detected the fleet first. Panic spread. The unknown ships were massive, heavily armored and built for war. They carried weapons beyond anything the Union had seen before. A distress signal was sent across the galaxy. Unknown armada approaching. Possible threat. But before reinforcements could arrive, the fleet attacked. The first strike. The first Union outpost never stood a chance. Within minutes, the unknown ships wiped out the station's defenses. The outpost commander tried to send a final message, one last warning to the Union. But it was too late. The signal was jammed. The attackers wanted silence. No one would know what happened here. Not yet. As the battle ended, one of the mysterious warships broadcasted a single message. A deep voice spoke in Galactic Standard. "You tried to erase us. You failed." The transmission was short, but it was enough. The officers in the Union's High Council listened in silence. A cold realization spread through them. This was impossible. This was a ghost from the past. This was humanity. The return of the forgotten enemy. For generations, the Union had believed humans were gone, destroyed, but they were wrong. Somehow, someway, humanity had survived. They had fled the war. They had hidden in the darkness, beyond known space, and now, after centuries of silence, they had returned. But they were not the same. They were stronger, smarter, deadlier. This was no rebellion. This was not a desperate group of survivors. This was an empire that had waited, grown, and prepared. And now they were here to take back what was theirs. As the Union scrambled to understand the situation, more reports arrived. Planetary defenses falling, warships destroyed, human fleets moving toward the core worlds. The Union's leaders faced a terrible truth. They had erased humanity from history, but history was about to be rewritten with vengeance. The return of the lost armada. The Galactic Union had ruled unchallenged for centuries. Now, in a single moment, everything changed. The unknown fleet at the edge of the galaxy was no longer a mystery. It was humanity. And they had returned with fire and vengeance. The Union's panic. Inside the Union's high command, alarms blared. Officers shouted over one another, desperate for answers. "Impossible. Humans are extinct," a general roared. But the reports were clear. The fleet had attacked a Union outpost and wiped it out in minutes. No survivors, no distress signals. Only a single transmission remained. "You tried to erase us. you failed. Fear spread like wildfire. For centuries, the Union had believed that humanity was weak, that they had been destroyed, that they would never return. But now, a massive advanced armada was moving through space, straight toward the core worlds. A silent, deadly fleet. Union warships were sent to intercept the fleet. The best ships, the strongest weapons, the most experienced commanders. But when they arrived at the last known coordinates of the human fleet, nothing. No signs of movement. No communication. Just empty space. Then suddenly, they were surrounded. The human ships had been waiting, hidden in the shadows, using technology far beyond anything the Union had seen. Before the Union ships could react, the attack began. The ambush. The first shots came without warning. Human warships moved like ghosts, striking from nowhere, hitting with deadly precision. Their weapons sliced through Union shields as if they were paper. The Union fleet fought back, but their weapons had no effect. The humans' armor was stronger. Their weapons were faster. Their strategies were unpredictable. One by one, the Union warships exploded into fireballs. The battle lasted less than 10 minutes. Only one Union ship survived. It fled at maximum speed, broadcasting a desperate warning. They are not extinct. They are stronger. And they are coming. The message to the galaxy. As the news spread, panic gripped the galaxy. The Council of the Galactic Union held an emergency meeting. Every major species sent representatives. The room was filled with fear. How did they survive? How did they build such an army? What do they want? No one had answers. Then, a message interrupted their broadcast. A transmission, hijacking every screen, every device across the galaxy. A hooded figure appeared. Behind them, a fleet of human warships hovered in deep space. The voice was calm, controlled. You destroyed our home. You erased our history. You thought we were gone. The figure leaned forward. Now we will erase you. Then the screen went black. Silence filled the council chamber. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Union faced an enemy they did not know how to defeat. The humans were back. And they were unstoppable. The truth behind the survival. The Galactic Union was in chaos. The return of humanity had shattered their confidence, turning their once mighty empire into a realm of fear. But the biggest question remained unanswered. How did the humans survive? For centuries, the Union had believed them completely wiped out. Earth had been burned to ash. Every human colony had been destroyed. Every trace of their existence had been erased. And yet they had returned. Stronger, deadlier, unstoppable. The answer lay beyond the known galaxy, in the darkest reaches of space, where no Union ship had dared to go. The Exodus, humanity's great escape. Centuries ago, when Earth fell and the last human worlds burned, not all were lost. A single fleet, carrying the last survivors of the species, escaped into deep space. It was not a grand fleet. It was small, broken, and running out of time. Union warships chased them, determined to finish the job. But humanity had one last trick. They fled beyond the borders of known space, into the void. The void was a region of dead stars and black holes, a place where no life could exist. No one had ever traveled beyond it, and no Union ship had ever returned from it. The Union believed that the humans had made a desperate mistake. They assumed the last fleet had perished in the darkness. They were wrong. Rebuilding in the shadows. For centuries, the survivors lived in the deep unknown. They found hidden planets, lost resources, and ancient technologies buried in the dark corners of the universe. They'd rebuild, slowly but with a single purpose: to return. Generations passed. The survivors trained, evolved, and adapted to their harsh new reality. They developed new weapons, stronger than anything the Union had ever seen. AI-controlled warships, energy shields that defied physics, and stealth technology that could turn an entire fleet invisible. They studied war, Not just human war, but every war in galactic history. They learned the weaknesses of the Union, their tactics, their mistakes. And then, when they were ready, they returned. Not as refugees, not as survivors, but as an empire. The warning that came too late. A single Union scientist, Dr. Varric, had once warned the Council that humans might have survived. If they escaped, they would not have disappeared, he had said. They would have prepared. They would have evolved. And one day, they will return. The Council had laughed at him. They ignored his warnings, erased his reports, and branded him a fool. Now, as reports of entire Union fleets vanishing reached the Council, they remembered his words. Dr. Varric had been right. And now, it was too late. The fleet moves forward. The human armada did not stop. Planet after planet fell. Union forces tried to fight back, but their weapons were useless against human technology. Cities burned. Union fleets vanished without a trace. The galaxy watched in horror as the once powerful rulers of the universe became prey. One by one, the stars that had once belonged to the Union were claimed by humanity. And deep in the heart of the human fleet, their leader watched in silence. A man who carried the memory of Earth's destruction. A man who had been raised in the shadows, taught that humanity could never be weak again. He spoke to his commanders, his voice calm and unshaken. They erased us from history. His gaze turned toward the Union's homeworld, where their rulers cowered in fear. Now we erase them. The first strike. The Galactic Union had ruled for centuries, believing itself invincible. Now, their nightmare had come true. Humanity had returned, not as survivors, not as refugees, but as a force of destruction. Their fleets were unstoppable, their technology beyond understanding. The Union's leaders desperately scrambled for a plan. If they did nothing, their empire would fall. Their only choice, fight back. And so, they prepared for war. The battle begins. The first major battle took place in the Epsilon 4 system, a heavily fortified Union world. The planet was protected by 3 orbital defense stations, a fleet of 50 warships, and the most advanced planetary shields in the Union's arsenal. No enemy had ever breached its defenses. But the Union had never faced humans like this. A silent approach. The Union fleet waited, their guns locked onto the void of space. They had detected the human armada moving toward the planet. Yet, as minutes passed, nothing appeared. The Union officers grew nervous. The fleet should have arrived by now. Where were they? Then, without warning, the orbital stations lost power. Every defense system went dark. The Union ships tried to react, but before they could even raise their shields, the first wave hit. The unstoppable force. Human warships appear out of nowhere, emerging from the shadows of deep space. They had been using advanced stealth technology, slipping past the Union's defenses unseen. Now, they struck with full force. Union warships exploded within seconds, their shields useless against the human fleet's firepower. The battle was over before it even began. Within 5 minutes, the once proud defense fleet of Epsilon 4 was gone. Only a few ships remained, fleeing toward the core worlds, sending desperate distress signals. On the planet below, Union soldiers and civilians watched in horror as the sky burned with the wreckage of their fallen fleet. And then the bombardment began. The fall of Epsilon 4. The human fleet did not hesitate. Orbital cannons fired precision strikes, destroying key military bases and government centers. The Union commanders begged for mercy. But humanity had not forgotten. They remembered the destruction of Earth. They remembered how the Union had erased them from history. Now history was being rewritten in fire. Within hours, Epsilon 4 surrendered. The first Union world had fallen, and it would not be the last. The message to the galaxy. Once again, the humans broadcasted a message across the stars. Their leader stood before the fleet, his expression calm, his voice steady. You thought we were gone. You thought we were weak. You thought you could erase us. He stepped forward, his gaze piercing through the screen. Now you will learn the truth. Humanity does not fall. Humanity does not forget. A pause. This is only the beginning. Then the transmission ended. The galaxy trembled in fear. Humanity was not just back. They were taking over. The Union's desperate counterattack. The fall of Epsilon 4 sent shockwaves across the Galactic Union. For the first time in centuries, they were losing. The humans had returned with superior technology, unpredictable strategies, and a relentless will to destroy. One world had already fallen. More would follow. The Union's leaders knew they had only one choice: fight back. The Grand Fleet mobilizes. In the Union's capital, the Supreme Council held an emergency meeting. Fear filled the room. The senators, the generals, even the High Chancellor himself, none of them had ever faced a threat like this. We cannot let this continue, one commander shouted. If we do not stop them now, we lose everything. The council agreed. They could no longer sit back and defend. They needed to strike first. A massive fleet was assembled, the largest in the history of the Union. Over 1,000 warships. The most powerful weapons the Union had ever built. The fleet's objective: destroy the human armada, crush them before they reach the core worlds, end the war before it truly begins. The Union's leaders believed they could win. They were wrong. The trap is set. The Union fleet moved swiftly, heading toward the last known location of the human forces. Their plan was simple: overwhelm the enemy with sheer numbers. But as they entered the Zeta Prime system, something felt wrong. The space around them was silent. Too silent. There were no human ships in sight. No transmissions. No signs of battle. Just the endless darkness of space. The Union commanders hesitated. Where was the enemy? Then their sensors picked up something massive. Something above them. Before they could react, the ambush began. The fall of the Union's Grand Fleet. From the shadows, the human warships descended upon them. Thousands of massive vessels, their hulls black as the void, armed with weapons beyond comprehension. They had been waiting, watching. They knew the Union would come, and they had set a perfect trap. The first wave of human attacks shattered the Union's front lines. Their weapons ripped through Union shields like they were nothing. Union warships exploded in seconds, their crews never even getting the chance to fight back. The commanders desperately tried to reorganize their forces, but it was too late. The battle was over before it had even begun. Within minutes, half of the Union's fleet was destroyed. The remaining ships tried to flee, but there was nowhere to run. The human leader speaks. As the battle raged, a single transmission was sent to the remaining Union ships. A voice, calm, commanding, unshaken. It was the leader of the human fleet. You erased us from history. You burned our worlds. You hunted us to extinction. A pause. And now we do the same to you. On the Union command ship, the officers looked at one another in terror. They were not fighting soldiers. They were fighting ghosts, monsters of their own creation. And they were losing. The last stand. Some Union ships refused to surrender. They fought with everything they had. But their weapons were useless. Their strategies were outdated. Their enemies were unstoppable. One by one, they fell. And then, the Union's flagship was destroyed. The battle was over. The Grand Fleet, the most powerful force the Union had ever assembled, was gone. And the path to the core worlds was wide open. A galaxy in terror. As the human fleet moved forward, the entire galaxy watched in horror. The Union had thrown everything they had at the humans, and it had meant nothing. The Supreme Council realized the terrible truth. The war was already lost. Now there was only one question left. Would humanity destroy them all? Or would they show mercy? The Union could only hope, because the armada was coming. And this time, there would be no escape. The battle for the galactic capital. The Galactic Union was in ruins. Their grand fleet had been annihilated. Their best warships had been reduced to wreckage. Now, only one stronghold remained, the heart of the Union, the capital world, Sci-Fi Prime. A planet home to billions, the seat of the Supreme Council, and the last hope of the Union. If Sci-Fi Prime fell, the war would be over, and humanity was already on its way. The last defense. The Supreme Council knew they had one final chance to stop the human invasion. They gathered every remaining warship, every battle station, every soldier, every weapon. The defense of Sci-Fi Prime would be the largest battle in the history of the Union. If they failed, the Union would cease to exist. The Chancellor stood before his people, broadcasting across the planet. We are the Galactic Union. We have ruled for centuries. We cannot be defeated by an extinct race. His words were meant to inspire hope, but everyone knew the truth. The humans were not extinct. And they were coming. The sky burns. The first wave of human warships arrived in silence. Then, without warning, the sky exploded. Massive human dreadnoughts descended through the atmosphere, their cannons tearing through planetary defenses like paper. Union warships scrambled to respond, but their shields failed within seconds. The battle stations tried to fire back, but human EMP weapons disabled them instantly. The air was filled with the sound of destruction. Flames erupted across the sky. Cities trembled. Towers collapsed. The people of Sci-Fi Prime looked up and saw a nightmare. The return of the forgotten enemy. And they were unstoppable. The ground war begins. As the orbital battle raged, human dropships descended onto the planet's surface. Elite shock troops deployed across the cities, moving with precision and deadly speed. The Union's last remaining armies rushed to meet them. Blasters fired. Explosions rocked the streets. But the humans were faster, stronger, and better trained. Their weapons cut through Union armor. Their soldiers moved like ghosts. Within hours, the battle had spread to the capital itself, and the Supreme Council realized the terrible truth. They were losing. The last transmission. Inside the Supreme Council chambers, chaos erupted. "We must surrender," one senator shouted. "No, we fight to the end," another argued. But before they could decide, a transmission interrupted them. The screens flickered to life. And once again, the human leader appeared. His expression was cold, unshaken. Behind him, the burning ruins of the Union's fleet could be seen. He spoke, his voice echoing across the room. "You erased us from history." A long silence. "Now, we erase you." The transmission ended, and at that moment, the doors to the Supreme Council chamber exploded. The fall of the Union. Human soldiers stormed the building. The Union guards fired back, but it was futile. One by one, the Supreme Council members were captured or killed. The Chancellor, once the most powerful man in the galaxy, fell to his knees. He looked up at the human commander, his voice trembling. "Please, mercy." The human leader stared at him, his expression unreadable. Then he spoke. "Did you show us mercy when you burned our world?" The Chancellor had no answer. And with that, the Galactic Union ceased to exist. A new era begins. The battle was over. Sci-Fi Prime, the heart of the Union, had fallen. Humanity had won. Across the galaxy, species who once feared the Union now turned to their new rulers. Some begged for peace, some swore loyalty, others fled into the darkness. But one thing was clear: the old order was gone, and humanity was now the dominant force in the galaxy. The war had started with vengeance. Now it would end with power. Because this time, humans would not be erased. This time, they would write the future. The fall of the Galactic Union. Sci-Fi Prime, once the heart of the Galactic Union, was now a graveyard. The sky was filled with burning debris, the ruins of what had once been the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. The streets were silent, except for the marching of human soldiers. The Union's great empire, which had stood for centuries, was gone. The war was over. Humanity had won. The fate of the Supreme Council. Deep within the ruins of the Supreme Council chamber, the surviving Union leaders sat in chains. They had once ruled over thousands of star systems, millions of species. Now, they were nothing. A human officer entered the chamber, followed by the Supreme Commander of the human armada. His expression was calm, his steps slow and deliberate. He looked at the captured leaders and spoke in a voice that sent shivers down their spines. "You called us dangerous. You called us a threat to the galaxy." He stepped forward. "And so, you tried to erase us." The Union Chancellor trembled. His voice cracked as he whispered, "We had no choice." The human commander stared at him for a long moment. Then, he leaned in and said one final sentence, "Neither do we." The Supreme Council was never seen again. The Great Surrender. Across the galaxy, Union-controlled worlds received a single message. The war is over. The Union has fallen. Surrender now or face total destruction. Some planets resisted, but their fleets were easily crushed. Others surrendered immediately, swearing allegiance to the new rulers of the galaxy. Some fled to the outer edges of space, hoping to escape the wrath of humanity. But there was nowhere to run. The humans had grown in the shadows, far beyond what the galaxy had imagined. Now, they controlled everything. The burning of the Union's legacy. The humans did not just defeat the Union. They erased it. Statues of the old rulers were destroyed. The Union's great cities were renamed. All historical records of the Union's rule were wiped from existence. Just as the Union had tried to erase humanity from history, humanity now erased them. And the galaxy watched in fear and silence. Because the message was clear, never again would humanity be forgotten. The rise of a new empire. With the war over, humanity did not stop. They rebuilt the galaxy in their image. The Union's former territories became part of the new human empire. Human laws replaced Union laws. Human technology became the most advanced in the galaxy. And humanity's leader, once a soldier in the shadows, now ruled over countless worlds. For centuries, humans had been hunted, erased, and destroyed. Now, they were the dominant species in the universe, and they would never fall again. A warning to the future. In the capital city of the new empire, a human child walked with his father. He looked up at the giant banners flying in the wind, the symbol of humanity. The child tugged at his father's sleeve and asked, "Will they ever try to erase us again?" The father looked out at the endless stars, his eyes filled with certainty. He placed a hand on his son's shoulder and whispered, "Let them try. Justice or revenge." The war was over. The Galactic Union no longer existed. Humanity stood victorious, ruling over the ruins of the once mighty empire that had tried to erase them. But now, a choice had to be made. Would humanity rebuild the galaxy with justice? Or would they rule it with vengeance? The trials of the Union's leaders. Across the galaxy, former Union officials, generals, and warlords were hunted down. Some tried to escape, hiding in deep space, but there was nowhere left to run. One by one, they were captured and brought to trial. The Supreme Commander of the human empire stood before them. "You sentenced my people to death. You erased us from history. You thought you had won." He stepped forward, his expression cold. "Now you will answer for your crimes." The trials were swift and merciless. Many Union leaders were executed. Others were sentenced to exile, never to return. A few, those who had spoken against the war, were spared. But the message was clear: humanity never forgets. The galaxy watches in fear. As the trials ended, the other species of the galaxy held their breath. Would humanity seek more blood? Would they enslave the galaxy as punishment? Would they burn every alien world as revenge? The galaxy had once feared the Union's rule. Now, they feared humanity's power. And then, A message was sent across the stars. The new law of the galaxy. The Supreme Commander appeared on every screen, his voice echoing across the cosmos. The war is over. The Galactic Union is gone. A long pause. We do not seek to destroy. We do not seek to rule with fear. He looked directly into the screen. But let this be clear, if anyone dares to threaten humanity again, we will not be so merciful. The message ended, and the galaxy understood. Humanity was now the dominant force. But they were not mindless conquerors. They were something far more dangerous. They were rulers with a memory, a choice for the future. With the war behind them, humanity turned toward the future. They had the power to shape the galaxy however they wished. Some humans wanted revenge. They wanted to wipe out all traces of the Union's existence. Others wanted justice. They wanted to rebuild, to create a better galaxy than the one that had tried to erase them. The Supreme Commander stood before his advisors, listening to both sides. Then he made his decision. Humanity would not repeat the mistakes of the past. They would rule, but they would rule wisely, not as conquerors, not as tyrants, but as guardians of a new age, a world where no species would ever suffer the way humans had, a world where history would never be erased again. A new dawn. On Earth's restored homeworld, a monument was built, a towering structure made of the ruins of the Union's fallen capital. At its base, a single inscription was carved. We remember. As the twin suns of the new empire rose, humanity stood ready, not just as survivors, not just as warriors, but as the keepers of the galaxy. The forgotten had returned, and they would never be forgotten again. The new galactic era. The war was over. The Galactic Union had fallen, and in its place, a new power had risen, the human empire. No longer the hunted, no longer the forgotten. Humanity was now the rulers of the galaxy. But with power came responsibility, and the question remained, what kind of empire would humanity build? The rebuilding of a broken galaxy. The war had left entire worlds in ruins. Cities had burned, fleets had been destroyed, and billions had been displaced. The first task of the human empire was reconstruction. Human engineers, scientists, and diplomats were sent across the former Union territories. They rebuilt what had been destroyed. They restored order where there was chaos. They healed a galaxy that had suffered under the rule of the Union for too long. But this time, things were different. There was no slavery, no oppression, no forced rule. Humanity was not the new conqueror. They were the keepers of balance, a council of equals. Rather than ruling with an iron fist, humanity created a new system of governance. A galactic council was formed, where every species had a voice. It was not just a human empire. It was a coalition of those who had suffered under the Union. But humanity held the final authority. They had fought for this power. They had bled for this power. And they would never let it be taken from them again. The galaxy would thrive, but only under human guidance. And the message was clear. The past will never repeat itself. The last remnants of the Union. Not all had accepted humanity's rule. In the dark corners of space, Union loyalists plotted their revenge. They saw humanity as monsters, as the destroyers of their civilization. They wanted war. They wanted to strike back. But they knew the truth. They could not win. Humanity had proven that they were stronger, smarter, and more ruthless. So, the loyalists fled into the unknown. They vanished into the void, waiting, planning, whispering of a day when they would rise again. But humanity was watching. They would never be caught off guard again. The warning that would never be ignored again. On the day the new empire was declared, the Supreme Commander gave his final speech. It was broadcast across every system, to every planet, to every species. His words were simple, but they echoed through history. We were erased once. He looked into the camera, his expression unshaken. Never again. A long silence. We are humanity. We endure. We adapt. We rise. His voice grew stronger. This galaxy belongs to us now, and we will protect it. We will build it. We will rule it. A pause. But if any force, any species, any empire, any rebellion dares to threaten us, his gaze darkened. We will erase you from history, just as you try to erase us. And with that, the speech ended. The galaxy understood. The era of the Union was over. The era of humanity had begun. A child looks to the stars. Years later, on a restored Earth, a young boy walked with his father along a quiet path. Above them, the stars shined brightly, no longer a place of fear, but a place of possibility. The child tugged at his father's sleeve. "Will there ever be another war?" he asked. The father looked up at the vast galaxy above. He smiled, but his eyes held the weight of history. There will always be those who challenge us. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. But now, they know the truth. The child tilted his head. What truth? The father knelt, placing a firm hand on the boy's shoulder. And with quiet certainty, he whispered, "Let them try."